Welcome back, everybody, to the Tastemakers, the podcast where we say we watch all the TV and tell you what you should and should not watch. My name is Grace Leeder, normally joined by Taran Armstrong, but this is a week Taran is not here. So instead, I brought a very special guest up to the cottage. It's Mary. Mary, how you doing?
We can have fun. We can have a week, maybe two.
I'm coming to the cottage.
I'm coming to the cottage.
I've made a lot of memes of like, I'm coming to the cottage.
I get a lot of those.
Yeah.
I definitely get a lot of those. I'm so excited. It was so nice of you to say that you invited me on here when instead what I did was reach out and say, hey, are you talking about it?
I think maybe I have like in the past said like, let me know when you would like to come on the podcast to talk about scripted TV, and then Heated Rivalry is just the thing that
it just so happens
for you. And we actually, I will say, we got so many requests, but it was to cover Heated Rivalry, but it happened right at the end of the year. And so Tara and I were like, busy with the holiday, because I think the season ended. Was it the end of last year? Let me see when the last episode dropped. Around the holidays, and so it's December 26th is the episode, yes. the day that the cottage episode came out. So it's very busy, and then it sort of felt like maybe we missed it. But then there has like, I'll actually want to pick your brain about how much you know that this thing is like absolutely a Canadian sensation, and to the level at which it's become a Canadian sensation, Mary. So we're going to talk about Heated Rivalry today.
Yes, we are. I did not know that it was like, I mean, I know that it's a Canadian show. I know that it's very, very popular. In the corners of the internet that I'm on, it was a slow trickle. And then unfortunately, the way it works is you watch Heated Rivalry and then your entire algorithm gets just completely flooded with that. So that's all I see now.
I don't know.
I'm understanding now that it's more popular.
I don't know if there's really, I think because it was like 6 episodes and it's such a sensation. I don't know that anything. I mean, and again, I feel like maybe I live in a bit of a bubble because I am like, I'm queer and I'm Canadian. Very much like hit a Venn diagram for me and like in the circles that I run in. But I feel like I haven't seen anything. Like, I'm trying to think of when the last time a new thing sort of like popped onto like TV and it went sort of this viral, really out of nowhere. Like, I think like obviously there have been shows that will come on. Like, I do think about a year ago, I think like we got like The Pit, where I was talking to you a little bit before about whether you're watching The Pit. And The Pit about a year ago, I feel like did kind of, everyone was like, ooh, like what's this? What's happening over here? Although that was like that's a 15 episode season. So it like had a lot of time to do it. Whereas Heated Rivalry just like, I mean, as per the name, like really just like got real hot real quick.
Yeah, it's interesting because it almost feels like maybe due to marketing and the way that they've handled the press, especially after the show started airing and was wrapping up with the actors, it started feeling almost more like the way that press for Wicked or something like that was all over the place. And of course, the other thing I think about it, we can talk more about this, is I definitely think there's something to the fact of once you start getting like the book talk girls and stuff like that into something, then they kind of take over and everybody starts hearing about it. But it's been very fascinating in my life because I polled a very large group of my friends to see like who has heard of this show, who has seen it, who has read the books, like what do we got? And it was about the demographics that you would expect who had never heard it versus had already consumed it.
Yes. I feel like everybody that I reach out to is either they're like, yes, I've watched it and consumed all of it and then consumed everything. Or they're like, no, and I know I need to, but I'm worried I'm going to fall into the pit of like being consumed by it like you all seem to be. So I think I have not read the books yet. I haven't even bought them. And I feel like I'm like holding off. Have you dabbled into the books at all?
Yeah. So real quick, like the way that I found out about all this, because I had heard the first thing I had heard was I'd seen memes of people basically saying, oh, the Heated Rivalry fans think they're the biggest thing ever, but they don't even remember what it was like to be a Twilight fan in the early 2000s. Like that was the connection I heard. And I didn't even know what Heated Rivalry was. And so I was like, oh, is this a new anime? Like, what is this? Because I sort of thought it was like, I don't know, something similar to Top Demon Hunters. I had no idea what it was. And then I started seeing the two lead actors doing some press things, but everything was like those clips where it's like Connor's story acting adorable for 9 minutes straight, like that kind of thing. And so I would just start seeing some of those pop up and I'm like, oh, I don't know what this is. This isn't what I thought it was. And then a friend of mine who I do theater with at our rehearsals, she was like, you have to watch Heated Rivalry. And so then I was like, okay, now I've been told what this is. Then I came home, watched the entire thing, started it again, and through my restart, I read the first book over the last couple days, and
Nice.
I'm like, I don't know, 15% into the second book, and the second book in the series is the one that the show is
The
primarily
shows was
based off of,
the
except for
first
episode
season
3.
is
So
season one is that the hunter like there's the whole sub which we'll get into. No,
yeah,
you know what? Let's say
let's get
so
into
no,
it.
we're actually gonna say it because we'll
Let's
detour
pause.
back.
Do
Yes, we'll
your
actually
other
pause.
stuff first. Let's
Yes,
get back in.
yes. So to give people a sense of what's going to happen today, we have a few other things we'll talk about as per like a normal Tastemakers episode. What's happening in the world of TV and movies. We'll sort of get Mary's thoughts on television and movies at the moment.
Nice.
And then we will jump into a heated rivalry discussion that will be full spoilers. So people can hop out if they have not seen it. And maybe before we jump into spoilers, we'll let people know like why they should be watching this. And I will talk to you about what a sensation it has, like just how much it has hit the moment in Canada for like Canadian pride. Okay. The first thing I did want to talk about, I mean, it's very fitting actually that it is, we're talking about a very Canadian thing because I feel like the biggest thing that happened this week in the world of entertainment was unfortunately Catherine O'Hara passed away, which I think came as a huge surprise to people, only 71. It's hard to like understate, I think for me, just how much like Catherine O'Hara means to me in terms of like comedic sensibilities and just being a person that I have seen on TV for a lot of years. I didn't watch a lot of SCTV growing up as a kid. Like that wasn't a thing that was on in our house, but I feel, like it's hard not to say how many, I think I probably have watched Home Alone more than any other movie because I watch it like many times every Christmas. So I don't know if there's like anything else I've probably seen more. And so I've just seen a lot of her. And then I love all of the Christopher Guest movies. So Best in Show.
Mm-hmm.
And Waiting for Guff, like just so phenomenal. And then I feel like had this sort of like, it's silly to call it sort of like, I don't know, maybe more like a crowning achievement that like she got to be Moira Rose in Schitt's Creek for, in this like, again, very like people are very proud as Canadians to like watch this thing. And she's such an iconic character and she's so incredible. Recently, she's been in The Studio and she was in The Last of Us. I think like this month she's nominated for best like supporting actress in 2 different television shows for 2 very different, I think, in The Last of Us and The Studio. It's just kind of like wild how good she is because I think she's not only just like tremendously funny, like maybe one of the funniest humans ever, also is an incredible actress. So just very sad to hear about what happened with Catherine O'Hara. Sounds like it was just like a bit of a, I guess they're saying like sudden illness, but it might have been that she also had been sick for a while, but then, as these things happen. So yeah, sad news, Mary.
It was very sad for me. Like the first thing I saw Catherine O'Hara in was Best in Show. Best in Show was definitely the type of movie that my parents, when we were growing up, were like, "You need to watch this. This is amazing," kind of thing. So, and then of course, Schitt's Creek, like, is what most people know her from now. But it just, it's always sad when that's part of life. You get older, and all of the people that you were used to watching in movies and TVs start passing away. But such an amazing, hilarious presence in everything that she was in.
I don't think I've cried more recently than I was at the Toronto National Film Festival and I watched the John Candy I Like Me documentary, which is a lot of about the way that John Candy was such a comedic force, but also like didn't necessarily always like think like himself, in this way, that just because of various different things. He wasn't a guy who really like struggled with like drugs or alcohol in the way that a lot of these people who die young did. It was more so like there was an incessant need to try to like be something for people, either to be like, literally like in the city of Toronto, like buying a sports team and wanting to be like this Toronto guy, being a comedian, all of that. And Catherine O'Hara gave the eulogy at his funeral. And so that some clips from that were going, and I was like, too sad, too sad. But it's the way in which like the amount of like just profusive love that people like talked about Catherine O'Hara, like as she passed away, as sort of these the Macaulay Culkin one. I don't know if you saw that one, but he basically sounds like, I think for a while, like because of Macaulay Culkin's own personal problems, they were like, they didn't really, like they weren't in each other's lives. And I think that recently had sort of been fixed. And so his comment was essentially like, oh, I thought we would have more time to sort of like, be part of each other's lives. And I was like, that sucks. And that's sad. So just a tremendously sad bit of news this week. And again, it's really like how much she just means for Canadian comedy as well. I was talking to you before we started. I interviewed Vic McHales recently, a dropout performer, comedian, improver on the new show Ponies. And the whole thing was like, who would you want on your show? And they were like, Catherine O'Hara, like she'd be amazing. Like she's like, and really Vic was talking about just how much like Canadian comedy we really treasure, because like we're such a small population, the amount of like Canadians who've gone on to be successful, and Catherine O'Hara is one of the best. So yeah,
definitely.
Okay, I don't know how to segue out of that, but we shall. I like to ask this as like people come on the show, Mary, which is like, what are your like Tara and I are like trying to watch basically everything new, everything buzzy. So I watched some stuff. I watched Wonder Man, this couple episodes of that. It's good. I like it. It's a new Marvel show. I'm watching The Pit. I'm watching A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So it was the best episode of the season so far. I like that's like, what are your like TV viewing habits, Mary? Like what are you watching? How do you watch TV?
And I feel bad because I have a running list of like the new shows coming out that I want to watch, and it just gets longer and longer, and some of them end up being in this like, okay, I'm gonna wait for the whole show to finish. So like I've heard so many amazing things about shows like Severance, and then I also hear those same people saying it's the worst having to wait for new seasons, and I'm like, great, I just won't do that then. I'll just wait till they're all done and then I'll watch it. I do really want to watch Ponies. That looks like exactly my kind of thing, so I'm probably gonna get right on that. But unfortunately, I am a really, really bad, especially with scripted TV, about rewatching. So at the moment, like I'm rewatching Smallville. I'm rewatching.
Oh, I love Smallville.
Yeah, I was recently. Yeah, so I was recently on a Smallville podcast. They were doing like a creating the ultimate season, so picking like the best episode 1, the best episode 2, the best.
I love
3,
this
that
idea.
kind of thing. And it was really, really fun. You'd sort of debate and everything. So that was that's something that I'm still actively doing. And otherwise, I mean, it's bad, but like that's why I'm here. I've watched Heated Rivalry like 2 times. Yeah. So that's what I've done.
I feel like in addition to the ones that I was talking about, I feel like a lot of people watch. I believe Michael Jacob. We actually, we launched a Tastemakers Facebook group. I should have maybe led with this. So you can find it on Facebook if you are a Facebook user. Search the Tastemakers podcast. You should be able to find it. It's a good place where people can chat about what they're watching each week, share news, etc. And so I asked people today, what are they watching? There's a lot of people watching The Pit. A lot of people watching His and Hers, All Her Fault. People are catching them on. Michael J. Clark said he was watching Tell Me Lies and said, I'm not sure whether I love it or hate it, but I am watching it. So yeah.
All Her Fault is the other one that I like probably tonight am going to start either Ponies or All Her Fault, one or the other, because I've been like dying to watch both of those.
Yeah, I need to finish All Her Fault because I do really like it. It's just the bane of this thing is like I'm always like watching the new thing, but they are, I think, very different, those shows. But the other thing that came out this week is Send Help, which I feel like if you are an RHAP listener, people will have seen. There's been a lot of promotion for this movie. So the new Sam Raimi movie, historic sort of horror director, and Rachel McAdams, I believe, is has a big Canadian week on the Tastemakers here.
This is right now. Today I learned Rachel McAdams was Canadian.
I believe, I don't think I'm wrong in saying this, but I believe my aunt hosted the baby shower before she was born.
That's wild.
I believe that is true. A bit of a tale that was told in our circles. And so how much I'm misremembering this, actually, like, no, your aunt just like lived next door to the house where it happened. I don't know, but that is seemingly what I remember. But Send Help, I saw it. You have not checked it out yet, Mary, and that's not a shame. People don't really go to the movies, so
here's what I want to know from you about Send Help, because it's the thing from the trailers that has bugged me the most. How is this? Is Dylan O'Brien's character like? Is it supposed to be a thing that he's like a super young boss? Because he like, I mean, the actor's 34. So I was gonna say the most unrealistic thing for me watching the trailers was like, why is he in charge?
He's big Nepo baby energy. Like his dad was the CEO who's like suddenly retired or died. I can't remember.
Did you watch The Beekeeper a few years ago?
I did watch The Beekeeper. Yeah. Okay. There's like basically a new Beekeeper movie out this year. Every January now, Jason Statham is like, hey, I will do a version of The Beekeeper. So this one is called called Shelter, but yeah.
Perfect. Because I feel like Josh Hutchinson's character in that was
Yes.
probably similar.
Gives same energy.
Same energy. Great.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is the whole that like Rachel McAdams plays Linda Little, who is a very like socially awkward, but very capable at her job. But she's like sort of socially, inept. Like she's got tuna fish on her cheek or whatever. And so this dynamic, so like she's very capable of those, so they have to go. Plane crashes. She is like a wilderness, like I actually, there was a question that I think I saw in the RHAP off topic Facebook group. Would Linda Little be good at Survivor? And my thing is actually, I don't know that Linda Little will be good at Survivor, because I think the thing that she is the type of player that I think many of us in this in the RHAP world would not love on Survivor, which is that she's like thinks that she's there because she can build the shelter and plan the challenges. And we're like, actually, like you're not really like thinking about how to play this strategically.
Get her on Extracted then.
Yes, exactly. Yes, which you're covering on on RHAP. Yeah, she might be better at Extracted than Survivor. Yeah. So that's the movie. I thought it was very fun. I think it was more fun than good, which is the thing I've been saying. Although I think many people disagree with me. I think most people are a lot higher on this movie than I am. And think
like
it's
The Beekeeper.
This is like my new favorite thing, which is I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's more fun than it was good, which I think is a really fair. That's a fair reason to watch things.
Somebody tried to tell me that about one of my most favorite recent movies, Bullet Train. They're like, yeah, it's fun, but it's not very good. I'm like, no, you're wrong. It's fun and good. It's fun.
I do remember there was a moment where I think we were playing like a Goose Goose Duck or something like this, and then it was revealed that you had seen Bullet Train. Not only you had just seen it, I believe you saw it in theaters multiple times. Is this not true?
4 times in theaters.
Yeah. What? Tell me about your passion for Bullet Train. I like this movie.
I do love train movies in general, but for me, I remember being at the theater and seeing the trailer come on and leaving the room because I said, I don't even want to be spoiled. I saw the first 2 seconds of the trailer and I was like, this is exactly my kind of movie. I love chaos. I love irregular storytelling, like when people jump back in time or do flashbacks. Yes. I love comedy. And I was like, that one guy looks vaguely familiar because I just seen Tenet and loved Tenet. And the person I was with was like, yeah, that he was in Tenet too. It's Aaron Taylor Johnson, and that became my first time. It took like 28 years of my life, but I finally was like, oh, this is what people mean when they say they have like a celebrity crush. I get it now.
Also, I mean, Aaron Taylor Johnson was heavily rumored to be the next James Bond, which I think pre-pod you were saying that you were watching a lot of the Daniel Craig James Bond.
I know.
So I don't think he's going to be it. But
no, at this point, also it's so funny because everyone who was rumored like 4 or 5 years ago is like
now
not in a bad way, but they're like getting older. It's like if it takes 3 or 4 years to make a new James Bond movie, what are they going to do? 2 movies? Like, come on.
It's probably. I mean, the James Bond casting must be coming because Denis is directing, and that he's going to be finishing up. Should be. Doing Dune 3 is coming out this year, so he shall then probably move on to James Bond.
We're getting a new Bond. Exciting.
That's kind of fun. Okay, I think that those are all my things for this week. Anything else we'll talk about? There's a new Disney CEO. He's the head of parks. This is basically just Succession in real life. Okay, sure.
My other secret love, it's not Disney, but I love theme parks. So
I do love theme parks too.
I'm very interested in all theme park news that happens.
Well, that's the head of Disney is the former head of parks. So you assume that he has, although I guess it just probably means like more of the same in the parks business.
Probably.
So maybe less exciting. Okay, we'll be back. So now we'll be back. Taran will be back next week. We'll talk about lots of other stuff.
Oh, darn. I really wanted Taran's input on Heated Rivalry.
I'll ask him next week. And if people have other suggestions for things we should be covering, if things you want us to be diving deeper onto, let us know. Before we do full spoilers on Heated Rivalry, in case people have shown up here and they like don't have social media, and in which case they're way smarter than I am, should we give like the pitch for Heated Rivalry to people just in case they like really haven't seen or heard anything about this?
Yeah. So Heated Rivalry is it's the show that you are going to hear on the internet as just being called, oh, it's that gay hockey show.
Yes.
And that's basically what most people are calling. And they're not wrong, but it's also like, I think it's a lot more than that. But I'm also here. I'm biased. So as someone who watched it and liked it. But yeah, I mean, the general premise is I don't even want to say enemies to lovers. It's more of just a rivalry and a semi-closeted love story taking place over many, many years with a hockey background and a lot more depth than you would expect initially, and also like very, very beautifully shot and a
Yes.
well-made show, especially for what I understand was a pretty small budget in Canada. So I kind of like a surprise hit, but clearly made with like a ton of love.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that is true. That like I think there's a lot of like I think oversimplification of the what the show is, but I think it actually is like I don't think it would sustain itself if it was as shallow, I think, as like the jokes make it out to be, because I
Yes.
do think it's like very deep. And I thought like there's a lot of scenes over the course of the show that I think are like just incredibly moving and really resonant and like really authentic to, I think, for me, the queer experience. And also like I didn't really play hockey growing up, but I have three brothers, so I was like, this is a life I was around a lot. Like I spent a lot of my time in my childhood in a hockey arena, even though I didn't play. I was saying this like all of my first jobs were like I took the money at the entrance of the hockey arena. I did the snack bar at the arena. I time kept. Like these are all the jobs
Did you
that I
drive the
had.
Zamboni?
I did not get to drive the
Ah,
Zamboni. That's another level, but that's like I didn't quite get there. What I
you
used
gotta
to
get
do,
trained on that.
yeah, what I used to do is I would do the timekeeping and I would do the sheet, because then I would announce who scored the goals, and the old ladies who would sit inside out of the cold
Yes.
would love that I would do that, and so that I would get the biggest and best games and get paid more money. That's really,
Nice.
and I feel like that's really the first podcast. Like that's why I'm podcasting. I would like
Podcasting
speak
because
on a
of that.
mic at the local hockey rink. Yeah. So it's just like incredibly authentic, I think, and true. So I think it's good. And then also, yeah, I do think it's like well made, but also it's like it is super short. It's 6 episodes. They like don't think any episode is more than an hour, so it's like incredibly bingeable and able to watch. I will say, in terms of incredibly bingeable, also just be cautious. It is a steamy show. Especially those first few episodes are like
Yeah.
incredibly steamy. There's a lot. I guess the last one too. There's a lot of butt that people are going to see. So just be mindful of where you're watching it. But
Yes.
it's so easy to watch.
Yes.
Um, Okay, nobody else needs to be sold on Heated Rivalry. Everybody, you're either here because you didn't watch it, you don't care about being spoiled. Not there's like a ton that we can spoil, but or you watched the show. Okay, let me actually first talk about like what a sensation it's become.
Yes, please
Um,
do.
did you know that Hudson Williams and Connor Story held the torch for Canada at the over at a torch bearing ceremony in for the Olympics in
I
Italy?
did, and also
Yeah.
this is terrible because I should have, learned this beforehand. Are they both Canadian as well?
Connor's not the Russian is not Canadian. He is from Texas, but it's okay.
Wow.
I know. So I don't even know. I guess did they? I mean, am I mispresenting the news that maybe they both didn't do? But they were both
They were
torchbearers, I
both
think.
definitely there. I saw them both holding a torch.
Okay, so I mean, and I guess you could just be from like they're just Olympic torchbearers. They don't have to be 100% representing Canada, so that's fine. Um, did you know that there was an event recently where it was like I don't even know what the event was, but it was sort of a celebration of the show, I think. And I don't even know if that's true. Maybe it was like a screen. And our prime minister showed up. And did you see
That's
the
awesome.
viral moments of so not only did he wear he wore sort of the clothing that was created for Team Canada, the hoodie. They also did like a photo shoot with Hudson Williams. And then he had seen earlier that Hudson Williams had done a thing where he was putting his leg up on somebody else. So the prime minister said, "Are you going to do the leg thing?" And so then he put his leg up, and they're like, he's like basically like spooning the prime minister of Canada.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
awesome, though.
yeah, and then the other thing and actually, like the Prime Minister of Canada, I don't, like politics, like he's not my first choice, but I'm much better than like what we could have got in the election. I'll basically leave it at that. For Canadian, you know. But he has like a trans kid, like so. I think like I think he's not really speaking about a lot of like stuff, especially during the campaign trail, because he's trying to be a little bit centrist, but like. He does have a trans kid, so I presume he's like very pro LGBTQ rights. There's a very funny thing he did where hasn't been a politician for a little while. He's former the head of the Bank of England. He sort of like came in and sort of like saving the Justin Trudeau party in the election. And so he gave this speech where he's like, listen, I'm a politician. Like I wasn't here, but I'm going to take credit. Like I greenlit this show. Like this is me, which is very funny. I think just like a very charming moment. So yeah, it's being like hugely celebrated in Canada as like a Canadian success, which is because we're so small compared to America that like we hold on to all of the moments in which it's like, especially as there have been things that have been said recently by the president of the country down there to basically be like, Canadian proud. So it's been a big moment.
I'm
for
wearing a
Heated Rivalry.
Canada shirt. I don't
Yes, I love
associate.
it. Great.
Yeah, I mean, I had heard some of the things. I had heard about the hockey team like making branded merch so that people could order them with Hollander and Rosenoff jerseys and things like that.
And we have the Winter Olympics coming up, which a lot of,
Yes.
so yeah, very fun. Yeah.
Really, I didn't even think about the Winter Olympics element of it, but I'm sure that was thought about in terms of when they released the show. So
I guess probably. I mean, it's also like the middle of winter. I don't know. The thing that's I think very fun about the show is like I do think for as much as it blew up while it was airing, I feel like they're also trying to I don't think they ever imagined it would be this big. And so like the fact that Connor Story is going to be hosting Saturday Night Live. Did you know that? That's coming up
that's
later
awesome.
this month? Yeah. With Mumford & Sons. Connor Story and Mumford & Sons are the host and musical guests. So I feel like they're trying to now capitalize on or they're being asked to do a lot more media.
Yes.
And they're saying yes. So it's just super fun. Been greenlit for a second season. So yeah. Okay. What is it that now we're in the spoiler section? Yeah.
It's so interesting to me. So in case you don't already know, for some reason, this show is inspired by and created based off of some books written by an author named Rachel Reed, or at least that's her pen name. And the main show follows the second book in the series. They're not a series, they're more like an anthology. They all exist in the same universe with hockey players. They're all hockey romances. And the second book, Heated Rivalry, is what the majority of the show is about. The first book in the series, Game Changer, is what episode 3 is about in this series.
Yes.
And what was interesting to me watching this was I was watching it, but I was also, I'm not gonna lie, first time watching, I was playing online Catan at the same time. So I was sort of half watching, looking down, looking up. And I remember there was a part in episode 2 where one of the characters who is Russian, they were speaking in Russian for quite a lot of it, and so I was having to read subtitles, and I had to pause the show for a long time because I had to finish my Catan game before I could read the subtitles.
Mm-hmm.
You know how it is.
Yep.
So once I got to episode 3, though, I texted my friend who told me to watch it, and I said, I feel like this is going to be blasphemous to the fans of the show, but I wasn't sold until episode 3. And part of that is because I was playing Catan and I wasn't paying attention.
Sure.
But I was I feel like, and she was like, oh, that's interesting, because a lot of people say they even skipped the episode, which I think is wild. First off, do not skip episode 3. So
I was thinking, as I was watching episode 3, I was like, oh, what are we doing? We're moving away. But ultimately, because people, no, episode 3 is the one where we don't have basically any of Shane and Ilya in it.
Who are the two main characters, Shane and Ilya.
Two main characters. Yes. It's basically all Shane and Kip. It's just but obviously by the time you finish the season,
it's so important.
It is so important. So it's kind of I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. But there's a little bit of where's the Canadian and Russian? Where are the two hockey players that I love? So it's so interesting that you have this different. That's what hooked you a little bit.
And I know I'm jumping around a little, but what I think is interesting is episode 2 is episode 1. They're rookies. They meet. Episode 2 is called Olympians, and there's some things that happen at the Russian Olympics, or the Olympics in Russia, and there's a scene in there where you see this third character named Scott Hunter, and I could they're not trying to be overt, but they're not trying to hide it either. You can tell that Scott Hunter, his head perks up when one of the guys talks about being gay, and you can tell there's something going on there. And so when episode 3 starts with that same scene again, and then does a little rewind and says 4 months earlier, I told you I like irregular storytelling, and I was like, oh, right. I'm locked in. I'm so interested. What are we gonna get? Are we gonna get a different storyline here? And we did, and it was great. I loved it.
Well, especially once you realize as well that is the first book. The first book isn't Heated Rivalry. I do think. The other thing about the show, I mean, if in terms of being very Canadian, it's written and created by Jacob Tierney. He also directs a bunch of the episodes. He is probably, I think, before this was most well known for being a co-creator and a writer and director for Letterkenny, which is a show that I think had a fair amount of Canadian notoriety. And then I feel like Shoresy is the show. He did not create that, but he has directed it, and he's in that show. He became, I think, that show, I think, sort of Letterkenny, I think, for a lot of even Canadians would be like, oh, it's too rural Canadian, it's too it's so niche and specific. I think a lot of people, I love it. It's so nostalgic for me in terms of what it's like when I go up north to my country Canada, and so then he adapts this, the book series, and I think completely the right choice to do, obviously Shane and Ilya, but it's sort of to not feel like, once you see that game changer, this first the first book is the story of Scott and Kip. I give the show. I'm like, okay, all right, we can do this one. It's fine. Like, and again, how relevant it becomes by the end of the season. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I think I think what's fun about the show is like it is. I mean, it is heavy on the romance, like in terms of like their love affair, and there's a like funness to basically over the first two episodes. They're sort of this idea that these two hockey players who are, I think, in many ways, like whether this is like one to one, I don't think really, but like sort of the idea of Crosby and Ovechkin, these
Right.
two hockey players who were drafted in the same year and had this like kind of rivalry thing going, and were kind of considered maybe the two greatest players ever and sort of start at the same time. There's very much that energy here. It's fun to be like, oh, what if they were secretly gay lovers? But then I think like even by episode 2, for me, we're getting into all of the like the Olympics are in Russia, so Ilya's going home, and what is it like to be a closeted hockey player from Russia? And then I can't, trying to think about how much we get. I feel like we get a fair amount of Shane's like home life stuff. I feel like it really like comes to a head near the end of the season, where we're like we'll have the coming out moment to his parents. But I feel like all of that, the emotional, like it's a very fun show, and like it's sexy and steamy and whatever, but then also it does have like emotional depth, which is why I really like attached to it.
Yeah, and there's my brain is going like 15 different
I know,
directions of all the
apologies.
different
Yeah.
the different things I want to talk about, because I think like there's to people who it's hard to talk about to people who haven't seen it, like what it is that I think so many people are drawn in by and like about it. There's been a lot of psychoanalyzing the fans for different reasons. And I do want to say upfront here, like upfront 30 minutes into the podcast, but I do want to say I trust the listeners of this show. I think you guys are probably not the ones who are who would do this, but like there is definitely, like in any community, a toxic level of people blurring the line between a show and then the actors.
Yes.
You gotta you can love both separately, but they are not the same thing.
Right.
I actually, on my second watch, and now I haven't quite finished it, but on my second watch of the show, now that I'm like more tapped in and actually paying attention and not playing Catan, I'm more impressed by the acting ability, having seen some of the interviews of them in real life, because one of the characters is Russian. The actor, like you said, from Texas, he is not Russian. The night and dayness between both of the characters and their actors, at least how they're presenting in public, is astonishing. I would say.
Yeah.
You watch the show and it's very impressive, their level of acting. It's very impressive that Connor learned Russian, and that I mean, I'm not Russian, so I don't know how great his Russian speaking is or his accent. They sound very impressive to me, so I
Same.
don't know. And then also when it comes to the like, why do so many women, or at the very least not gay men, like this show?
Yes.
I think at the bottom line, it's because there's a lot of people who just want it's a romance. It's the
Yes.
same as any other romance when it comes down to that. It's a very well written show with and well acted and well shot romance. I saw a side by side compilation of shots from this show next to shots from Pride and Prejudice, the Keira Knightley version, and they are almost identical. It's the same yearning, it's the same feeling. Obviously different plots and different context, but when it comes down to it, there's that. You can also say we've started getting into the realm of backlash, not at the show, but at the fans of the show. And I think the reason behind that obviously is anything that a large group of people, women or marginalized people, like becomes, oh, then it must be just dumb and not good, right?
Yes.
And that's how it is about so many things. I was like a little scared going in, because my only other reference point for hockey romances, which in general have just been really popular. And I don't know what was the starting point for that, especially in books. But there was a book called Icebreaker, which, for your sanity, Grace, I hope you have not read.
I have not read this.
It's great. I don't recommend it. And I read it for one of my book clubs, and it was our longest book club ever because we all hated it so much. It's I'm sorry if there's any of you fans out there. I'm not making fun of you. I didn't like it.
It's too bad. It's too bad because it's a way better named series than that's my biggest complaint about Heated Rivalry. I think the name's bad, but you know.
But Icebreaker, I did not enjoy the book, and so I was kind of scarred from all-star hockey romances, and I was like, "There's no way."
This is a straight one. This is a figure skater and a hockey player.
It's the figure skater and hockey, but it's similar, sort of, not similar, but like they're supposed to. It's supposed to be anyway. I'm not going to rant about
r/romance book. Why is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace so hated?
But it's funny because if you actually look at like, there's a lot of things about like these books for Heated Rivalry when they were first released were had very different covers than they do now.
Right.
And there's this style of romance cover now that's like very cartoony couples, and I always find it a little odd.
There is this where I feel like you can like see it on like, you know, all these like book talk or whatever. I feel like I can see the type of, I can imagine the type of book you're like describing.
I don't think I have any. I don't read a ton of. That's a lie. I read a lot of romance, but I read a lot of fan fiction. I don't read a lot of like printed romance. And although, because it's me on this podcast, I will say the original first book in the series, Game Changer, was originally Steve Rogers' Bucky Barnes fan fiction. So actually, I'm not even gonna say, because people might think it was a book that someone wrote, put those characters in. It was reverse fan fiction in order to get eyes on it. So, and then reversed it back out of fan fiction again.
Yeah, the first cover I think is just like them in in towels with the abs.
They were much more Harlequin romance style, hot people on covers, right, originally. And then this trend now to make a lot of romance books look like, I'm not gonna say kids books, but like at the very least young adult, and it's a little odd. Not really sure what they're doing there, but I guess just trying to hide what you're reading.
I guess that's probably it, right? Like if it's much to have like that big
I guess
romance cover, that's probably it. Yeah.
The other thing was, back when I was in high school, I dated a hockey player, and so I was a little bit like just scarred from the whole hockey thing.
Yes, fair.
But I do think like it's interesting because it's not a hockey show. There's a hockey setting.
Correct.
And the hockey setting is very important and integral to the plot because a lot of it is about, you know, even the show starts and it goes from 2008 to 2017 in the timeline of the show. And it is like shocking to think about the fact that, even in the you know, mid 2010s, it would be such a big deal if a pro athlete, especially in the NHL, came out.
Yes.
Because it just, I don't know, in the everyday, it doesn't always feel like that sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's a piece too that's actually important for context of the show is like the time frame in which it's set, because I was thinking about this idea about like why the show is resonating, because in so many in many ways, it is just like a romance, but there's this extra thing of it being like a queer romance. And I do feel like there has been this thing, I think, over the last, I don't know, like 5-ish, maybe a little bit longer than that, of like, do we really need, like, does the gay story have to be the coming out story, you know? And I do think that on one hand, like, part of what I think is the sort of appeal of like how sort of like, because the show is very like explicit, you know, like, not that it is actually, but it's like there's a lot of butts and a lot of like, you know, like romance scenes of the two of them like sleeping together or whatever. Like there is a piece of that is like some of the romance is this idea that like it is like a closeted thing that's happening. And I do think like if it is important that it was said at that time, because that's the culture, and like that is the thing that allows it, I think, to sort of have that. I mean, not that it wouldn't be, I think, as big of a deal if it happened now, but that's the premise of the show, is also that like their rivalry spans over the course of time. And then there was recently somebody was like, wouldn't the show have been better if it was like basketball, you know, rivalry or whatever? Because, and the argument from their side was like, basketball personalities are much more of a thing than in hockey. And my feeling is that, like, again, as like a Canadian, not that I watch that much hockey. I'll watch if like the Leafs are playing well. But I've been around hockey culture a lot. There's so many reasons why I think like it. So first of all, there's just like the thing of the contrast between that they play on ice and this is a heated, hot romance. There is just that thing.
It might have just started being that simple.
It probably is. It just is that. Like that's part of the like juxtaposition that's like, it's fun. But hockey culture, actually, I think more so than anything, even probably like maybe the closest you could get in terms of like major sports is, I think, baseball. And even baseball, I think, has been able to push further in this. And I think this is because hockey is incredibly white, which is that there is this thing of like, you are professional even though it's like a game that has like fighting, it is still a thing where like I feel like so many hockey players I know like give the world's most boring interviews in terms of like the way that their public persona, I think, is so, and in a way I think that creates conformity, which so much of the show is about the way in which like Shane, specifically, I think even more so than Ilya, because Ilya is sort of this like bombastic Russian personality, but Shane is this very quiet, like, and there's this thing about Sidney Crosby, who I believe like the character is based off of, this idea that like Sidney is this like humble, nice, sweet guy who like does all the right things, and so he's like this like role model that we look up to, that I think like very much the idea of Shane is supposed to be like, well, he is that, and also like, he is then constrained to like be a particular way and to be perceived as a particular way, and that would limit his ability to come out. And then also over the last few years, hockey has had a huge reckoning with the culture of hockey, which the show I don't think really gets into, but I think it is important. Like I think it's cool, maybe more so than it is like that there's this show that's like, here's this like cool queer, there's a guy who I saw giving an interview, he's like, oh, it's so good that the show is existing because like I think a lot of little gay kids probably think that they couldn't play hockey because like a bro manly culture, and this idea that this show is it going to be a thing that they will watch that will let them do it is like so awesome. The fact that it's getting new people into the sport, like hockey has had like like in the worst cases like really awful stuff. There's a trial you can go look at between that all these kids on Team Canada like did some abhorrent stuff while they were like on a trip. So it's like the culture is so toxic that I think it's like super great that there is at least like this thing that's happening. That's like a wild I don't even know where we go from there, Mary.
Well, it's also like, and you hear this a lot of times from particularly movies centering around stories with Black characters, where the actors will say, oh my gosh, it was so nice to have a show or a movie where the central storyline is not about like me suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot of similarities in this. There's drama, but the drama mostly, actually, considering the name of the show, the drama is not so much between the characters. Like there's a little bit, but it's not about the characters in their romance like being mean to each other. That's not like where the drama comes from. The drama comes from outside pressures, from family, friends, their job, that kind of thing, figuring themselves out. And it's not, it's like, for the most part, a very happy story. In like, I don't know, it's told truthfully. I don't know how to like describe it other than because none of this sounds like it would be.
Well, because episode 6 is like this and I feel like we get this like, oh, we don't need another coming out story, but that is important. Like people who are queer do come out, and it is this thing, but at the same time, and this actually, I think that may be one of the closest comps you could give to this show in terms of like, if this genre is like explicit fantasy, the other show that I'm gonna talk about is like very much like coming of age teen drama, so very different. But it's Heartstopper, where did you watch Heartstopper at all?
No, I've heard of it though. Yeah,
but Heartstopper sort of has this, and I feel like I always like wrestled with this and this thing of like that show. There was a lot of like worry about coming out and like the to people to friends at school and who knew and whether your parents know and like accidentally coming out to your like there's all these like similar things. But I think
it's sort of like Love, Simon vibes.
Very much Love, Simon vibes. Great. Yes. Where I think the big difference is that like I feel like what's really important about the distinction, I think, between these types of things and then other things that we maybe used to get is that there is this like we all understand like why these characters can't come out, but there aren't like characters like yelling homophobic slurs or like nobody gets beat up, like there is this thing where like it, and I often would talk about Heartstopper as almost being like not quite, but like almost like idealized future in terms of
Right.
like it is still scary to come out because it changes a lot and like society electronics. But like often what happened in that show is like someone comes out and they're like, "It's okay, I love you still," and they would, which is like that is what happen. Sometimes it does, like that's not always what happens, but like there is this like the scene, the cottage episode where like he comes out. I actually love the cottage episode so much, and maybe it's my favorite episode because I think that the reaction from Shane's parents is so realistic to what I feel like, which is that they were not immediately like, "It's okay, we love you, it's all gonna be fine." They are very like uncomfortable and awkward, like at the first like
The
at
awkward
the
tension is so great.
because they're not being like, "It's okay." Because I always talk about this experience when I came out to my mom, and my mom had this thing of like, basically, my mom started going through all of the things that she thought would happen to me now that she
Yes.
knew that I was queer, trans, or whatever. Right? She was like, "You could get attacked, you could lose your job, you could get kicked out of your apartment, you like, well, all of these things." And so my mom is thinking that. So it's not this immediate like your life is going to be okay. That's not where she was. She was more like, "Oh no, all of these things could happen to you," and there was this very like awkward tension in these moments that I thought the show in episode 6 really like gets like nails what it feels like, and then slowly, because it's episode gets to the point where it's like they're saying I love you when they leave. Like that is it's just so good. I just love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's so many great things about that. It's also a very different. I mean, I'm sure I haven't seen Heartstopper, so I'm not going to say that this is the first show to have done this, but thinking about the common gay characters or gay relationships that you saw on television at the time when this show is set. So in
Right.
the late, early 2010s, around that time, the first two that came to mind for me were Glee and Modern Family.
Mm-hmm.
Both have gay characters in them. And there was definitely a stereotype of the type of gay person in the show that is very different from what is in Heated Rivalry.
Still very progressive, and also like still leaning
Yes,
in a little bit more to like, oh, they're still a little bit effeminate, like
right.
they're still, yeah.
There's a little bit of a difference, whereas this show I think really went full force into the like these are the typical hockey playing men that you'd expect. Actually, I'm gonna put a little asterisk on that because I feel like shouldn't they like have like missing teeth and like broken noses and like
Well, like yeah, Ovechkin eventually, like if Ilya is basically like I think Ilya is a little more pretty boy than Alexander Ovechkin even is, but eventually I do think if you look at a lot, I don't know when he started to lose his teeth, but yes, he definitely
I
I think he
jest.
definitely has a missing tooth.
I think
Yeah.
it's funny. But also it's yeah, so it was very different that way. And even in so I've just started reading the book that it's based off of, and but even based on episode 3, the Scott and Kip story, and having read that book, I would say the show even leans more into the guys being more masculine and sort of similar. Like, and some of that might just be casting, right? But like the two actors who play Shane and Ilya, practically the same height. They don't even really do what the book does, was try to sort of like make one of them the more dominant person or whatever. And I think that's what also works so well watching the show for me, and why I think a lot of other women like it is saying, oh look, these two people are complete equals. Or
Yes.
equals in certain ways that people don't usually get in romantic relationships.
Right. I mean, they are. And I think actually where like you're talking a little bit about like where there is in some corners of this fandom like very toxic nature, which
Yes.
is does happen. I think when you have characters or or a world or whatever that people love, and I think like most people are just like, oh my god, these characters are amazing, because I do think both like Shane, I think especially Ilya, like I don't know if you have a favorite between the two, but I do think like Ilya is my favorite character on the
So
show.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think like if we're like saying which one I'm not Ilya, but like I do think he's just like so funny and so compelling as a TV character. um and yeah, and so I do think like when you have really compelling TV characters that people love, people get like attached to them, and some people get too attached to them. And
Yes.
so like this show, I think just like for many people just checks so many boxes where it's like it's a compelling story, the characters are like funny and charming and likable, like there's like all of these things you can go down the list. Yeah.
There's also a lot of very interesting female characters in the show.
Yes.
So one of the main ones is the feature of basically all of episode 4. This character named Rose, who's an actress that Shane starts dating for a while, basically trying to see like, am I gay? Am I not? Like, what's the what's the situation going on? And I do think the show kind of like it does a great job of making a very convenient end to that plot line, because
Sure.
I was really nervous entering that plot to go, what's
Yes.
going to happen? How are we
Yeah.
eventually? We know, because this is a love story between Shane and Ilya. We know this is not going to last forever. So how is it going to end? And once again, with this sort of just vibe of the show being happy, is they're like, what if Rose just sort of figured,
Yes.
and she's chill with it, or not, but like, it's very, oh, we're not compatible. Okay, that's fine. And now you have a person that you can trust and talk to. And isn't that great? And that whole conversation that they have at the restaurant, I was, again, just so drawn into the acting, because I really felt like the way that they were both talking felt like, not the content, but the tone of types of conversations I've had. I feel like a lot of people have had conversations where you're with a person that you are maybe either breaking up with, or you're having a difficult conversation or relationship, and you feel like you can't get the right words out, that you're sort
Mhm.
of beating around the bush. Just the acting there I thought was so good. So I would say of the two, I was a little more on the first watch interested in Shane's story, but at the same time, see, my problem is I was just mostly interested in Scott and Kip. So like,
So yeah, I'm like, I mean,
I do like, I like all the characters, I like the plot, but I don't know what it was about that third storyline. I think just seeing people communicate is a big turn off
oh
to me.
yeah, yeah,
So,
the real ideal where like yeah, by the end of it, Scott's like winning the Stanley Cup or whatever they have to call it in the show because they can't be at the NHL.
the NHL Cup, yeah, whatever.
Um, yeah, bringing Kip on. It is sweet. I do think there's a little bit of me that was like, um, I'm like, oh, that's the moment I want. Like, I want Shane and Ilya to get the
Oh,
moment with
really?
it. Yeah, but like, what,
But
it's
but the
whatever.
way it
It's fine.
happens, and if you've seen the show, you know what we're talking about, is that Shane and Ilya are watching this on
Watching.
TV, and Shane's with his parents, and they're all, and I think they're, everything's going through their mind at the same time, which is, oh, I didn't know this guy was gay. Wait, what? And he's bringing him onto the ice, and he's kissing him in front of everyone. This changes the game, as it were.
The
So,
game changer, as the
the
first
game
book is,
changer.
and the nod to, I believe, once they really like, I don't know whether they would have called this game changer instead, because the second book is Heated Rivalry, but there is I think in episode 3 at the
Yes.
coffee shop, there is a piece of art in the background that many people in my circle have seen, because it is symbolic of the game changer from Dropouts
The loop-de-loop
branding, the
logo.
loop to loop
Yes.
logo. Yeah, they've done a great Survivor episode. If everybody needs an entry
Oh,
point into Dropout,
so
the
good.
game changer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I'm like, I think Ilya is the most compelling character, and then like, I'm rooting for Shane as well, but much more than Scott and Kip. But it's important to the story, and again, I like can understand there being like I like it being homage to like what Rachel Reed. It wasn't like this other stuff doesn't exist, you know.
Yes.
So, and I don't know if that's how the story plays out in Game Changer in the first. You've read it, but I mean, I guess yeah, I don't know, but
It's similar. There's some timeline differences, but otherwise it's pretty similar. It's definitely interesting, because I think so many people can get different things out of the show. Like, I was watching it and I was, kicking my feet and giggling happily at so many different parts, especially um I would say the way the show sort of lays out is the first 2 episodes are very heavy on the steaminess, but also
yes,
they're introducing the characters, and they're kind of setting up like, this is the situation. And actually, after the first episode, I was kind of like, how are we going to make 6 episodes out of this? Like, what are we doing here? And I think that was also what I liked about episode 3, was I was like, okay, we're getting more flavor to the world, a whole different side story. I'm assuming that'll be important, and it was. And then when you get to episode 4, it's like, now we've got tension and conflict and outside forces. And then episode 5 was like, actually, we're figuring everything out. It's happy. Episode 5 also the only episode without any steamy scenes, which I think is also important that they had that, because it kind of like, you don't even notice it because you're so invested in what's happening in the show.
hmm
Then episode 6, perfect culmination. When you watched it, Grace, was your immediate thought, oh, there should be another season? Or did you think this should be wrapped up here
oh,
and put a bow on it?
That's interesting. You know, like, you know what it kind of also reminds me of, just like checking off the box for a bunch of queer stuff that people should go watch, which is kind of like there's a this one has a much sadder ending, but Call Me by Your Name,
Mm.
where it was kind of like, when I learned that there was a sequel to Call Me by Your Name, like there's a book, there's
Mm.
a book which I actually believe is from the father's perspective, not
Interesting.
from the, and I was a little like, oh, I don't know that I like that. And so there's a little bit of that for me as well. Although I think I knew probably before I watched it that it was going to be, like, before I finished the first season, that was going to be renewed. So it's kind of hard for me to judge whether or not, like, what my headspace was like. The only thing I like feel like I'm really is like, although I know that there have been other books written, but like, how do you kind of like, will they condense the timeline? Is like the timeline going to be less important in a future season? Or we were like really gonna burn through time? That's the thing, like, I'm interested in. I think that if you left it, well, I do think I want another season, because I do think part of the interesting thing is that this is a very happy ending, but it's not the happiest ending,
Right.
because like in the cottage scene, like we're getting is like, so you guys are just gonna like play on separate teams and secretly be in love, and then like when you retire, then you can like be, and he's like, they're like, yeah, I guess. that's so that's so actually sad. So
Yeah.
yeah, there does need to be more, I think.
Yeah, the number of times characters are like, "Yeah, I just figured I would just sort of hide my life
Yeah.
until I retire."
I
And I
that
don't
is
know how old do people normally retire in hockey?
in hockey, like, I think, it's always sad when I'm like 34 and they're like, this 32-year-old grizzled veteran. Like, oh no. But I think hockey players can play like, I think like when you're in your that's like, you definitely are like on the older, like,
Gotcha.
if you're like Alexander Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby are both still playing, and if these are like people that they're based off of, they're 40. But
Okay.
they're like both probably have a couple of years left.
30 somethings, old in hockey and old on Love Island, but that's
That's
about
right. Well,
it.
so the I don't even know what I was it doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, like, we haven't got like a real, like, the happiest
We
ending.
haven't got the complete resolution, which I mean is
Yes,
impossible with most romances because
true.
think of almost any rom-com or romance, book, movie, TV show, whatever, especially movies. What do they usually end in? It's not like you see their whole life and death.
Mhm,
No, what you
mhm.
see is their their first kiss or they get married or they've told each other they love each other. And sometimes mostly because I'm cynical, I will watch those and be like, Psh, that's not the end. They're going to break up in college or whatever, you
Right.
know? And
That's
so
why
I don't.
they before have you ever seen the Before trilogy? This is like the best, where the before, is it Before Sunrise, Before whatever that thing, I'm so bad, it's
No.
so bad. But this is basically the idea of that, because like Before Sunrise is the first one, and it's like they have a night together, and then the next one it's like, oh, maybe that they're like little fling, like, oh, it actually turned into something, and it's just like, it is basically like three rom-coms but with the same couple at different points in their life, which is, yeah, super interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is I think that's what's great about this show is because it takes place over such a long period of time. You feel like you can't it's more realistic to root for them as a couple because this isn't a couple who's known each other for 6 months. They've known each other for almost 10 years.
Right.
So, that's I think also something that stands out about it. It's interesting cuz like so many shows that I really really have liked. You know, you look at something like Queen's Gambit or I don't know. There's other shows that are limited
Hmm.
series, and you watch it and you say, "That was so great that they ended there because it's so popular that they easily could have made more,
Yes.
but the fact that you've ended here means you know that what you had was good. The end that this is I will say this again, this is what fan fiction is for. If you want more of an ending, go
True.
read the books or go read or go write your own based off of it. So that's why that exists, but I do think they've already said there will be another season.
They are doing another season. And it's just like, it's too, like, this is the thing about in Canada, it's like if it was that successful, like, you kind of have to, because like it's such like, striking, magic here. Do you have a sense of whether like people, and I will be interested if people who have read all of the books would know this. So I don't know, you haven't read the other books, but do you have a sense that people who have read the books are like excited for the content that is coming in because there's two other like Ilya Shane books, right? I believe
There
that's correct.
are I am not because I haven't finished this yet, so I'm
Or
speaking
you,
totally out of school on this.
mhm.
I'm not 100% sure. I believe that the 3rd book in their particular story has either just come out or is about to come out. It's been relatively recent, and so that might tie up, but I actually think I think this show that we got in the first season might be more than just their first book. I
Okay.
don't know. I could
No,
be
that's
wrong.
okay.
I might that might be completely wrong. Everyone's gonna be yelling at me in the comments.
No,
I
no.
don't know. I haven't finished the book. I'm working on it. I will say I think that I'm not going to I think that the show is one of the adaptations that does appear relatively faithful, unless you're one of those people who really, really cares about things like eye color and hair color and whatever about every
Mhm.
single side character. Like there are differences that come when you cast real people and put a real setting on it. But other than that, I would say the show has, if anything, improved what I've seen from the book. I think it takes a lot to take a kind of lighthearted, you know, I don't think anyone's saying like people can love all the books, but I don't think anyone is saying that these books are like the most groundbreaking books
Yes.
to have ever been written or anything
Right.
like that. But it takes a lot to take something like that and turn it into a show that is not just popular but genuinely well made. And like you mentioned, the director of the show clearly really really likes it too,
Uh,
and like appreciates the product they're giving us.
yeah, we talked a little bit about Rose before, who's played by Sophie Nélisse, who I
Yes.
think most people would know from Yellow Jackets. She's tremendous in that show. We don't really talk much about. I feel like the other like there is a source of somewhat conflict, I would say, in the form of Svetlana.
Queen, love her.
I do love her as well. I think it's like it's implied that she both knows that Ilya is bisexual, but then they also have definitely slept together. I think even
Oh
in
yeah, I think
the
that's
scene where they're like on the bed in Russia watching, I don't know what they're watching. Is that episode 5 because they're watching? No, he's watching with a bunch of other hockey
yeah,
players.
but he is with her at one point, in there.
It's
It's
when he's at back home for the funeral, maybe with his
probably
father. Yeah,
yeah, he, yeah, I mean, I think well, it's not like we see romance scenes with them, but, like, I think it's heavily implied that she's one of the possibly many women that he is sleeping with as well. So, yeah, look, Ilya's a lover boy. He's he's gotta do what he can do.
yeah. Because then I think it's when they're at the cottage, he's like, I could just because he's talking about whether or not his contract is up with Boston, and so he could switch teams or whatever. And then he's like, he wants to play for Canadian team, but he's like, I could just marry Svetlana, like she has citizenship. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like there's like there's more to explore. I feel like again there's sort of like an idealized like it's like I feel like this will be resolved not in like Svetlana and Shane like hating each other, but more like it'll be awkward when they're around each other, and then like it'll all be fine. But there is like still more drama to mine, I think,
Oh, for
even in
sure.
what they've given us so far.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of interesting ways they could go next. Like, I just want like one scene of uh Shane and Elliot like talking with Scott too.
Right,
I mean,
right,
like, talking about that. And I think it's so funny because I feel like while part of them is probably like, oh, this is such a cool thing you did. This is really helpful to us as it turns out. I think that's not really the point. They don't have that relationship with Scott either. Like that's not
right.
really it's not like oh, we're looking up to you. Or at least in Ilya's
Well, Ilya,
way.
what do you make of it? I don't know if I like misread, but when he says he talked to Scott about it, he's only saying that he talked to Scott as in he acknowledged, like, hey,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
cool that you came
I
out. He's
don't think
not
he
saying like I
told
came
him.
out to him, right?
Yeah, well, so that's also something that's in the first book. In the first book, uh Ilya does like hang out with Scott after he comes out and gives his
Mm,
speech at the NHL awards or whatever that thing is.
right. Hmm.
Ilya's there and then goes and hangs out at a gay club with Scott and Kip and his friends
Oh,
afterward.
fun.
So it's yeah, it's an interesting scene, but it's mostly just Scott being like, huh, Ilya kind of looks like he might have danced with a guy before. So
Yeah.
it's like I'll put that in my back pocket for later, maybe. They don't have like a very frank conversation or anything.
Do you have like a favorite scene? Do you have a scene that like really or like moments that stand out to you from season 1?
I mean, there's so much. I feel like it's cliche, but probably just because I've watched it so many times and seen so many different edits. The scene where Shane is in the hospital, I am a
Mm.
sucker for like drastic moment
Yeah, that's right.
injury
That's right.
causes people to like, get
Mhm.
on the same page. I
Yes.
am a sucker for that trope. And so when he's there and he's slightly high on drugs and asking Shane to come to the cottage and asking Ilya, and they have that whole back and forth, that's definitely one of my
It's
favorites.
very
Like,
good.
it's cute, it's open. Also, just like when they're at the All-Star game together and they're sitting at the bar talking and they're kind of beating around the bush, and
Yes.
Ilya's like, the moments of like a little bit of jealousy where he's like, who styled you?
Yes.
And we haven't mentioned it because it's not mentioned in the show or book exactly, but it's mentioned by the author of the book that Shane is supposed to be canonically autistic. And
He's mentioned this in interviews after, I
yeah,
believe. Yeah.
and I think if you know that, it like, I'm not gonna say like explains things that he says or does, but you can kind of like understand his personality a little bit more.
Yes.
Because at first I thought I was like, oh, Shane is just like kind of shy and a little bit like um a little bit awkward in the way that he sometimes talks, but he's also like discovering a lot of things about himself. And you're thrown into a story where you haven't seen someone for their whole life, so you don't know like is this because of the pressure put on him? Is this because of whatever? It could be a lot of things. But it's definitely something that is really cute to watch the two of them communicate.
Yeah, I think that would be a thing. I think the show, I think because of the timeline that it's set for itself, I think it's a thing that can imagine that Jacob Tierney is like, this is who the character is, but also like there's no world in which like he's diagnosed with autism. Because
Yeah.
he's like a professional hockey player. Like it's I feel like even now it's still stigmatized, and I feel like it's only the last few years where like people have been, yeah. Anyway, so I think I love the scene where I mean, I'm just like a sucker for is when Shane tells Ilya to express his feelings in Russian over the just talk in Russian.
Oh,
And
I mean, yeah,
I think it's so
especially if you're an Ilya fan, like that whole scene is so emotional and so
yeah.
impressive, and it's something that I think watching it again, I almost want to just like not look at the subtitles and just see if
Mm,
hearing that, like, how does that feel just to
to
hear
hear
the
it,
conversation, hear it the way that Shane would.
so good. Yeah. So good. I
Yeah.
love that scene. Yeah. I
I
also love I am a big fan of because I do love a loon and him freaking out and calling it a bird wolf or whatever. It's
yeah,
great.
demonic
Mhm,
Canadian wolf bird or
mhm,
whatever.
mhm.
Yeah, it's very cute. Now, did you see it coming when, Shane's dad, like, sees the two of them together? Because I feel like
Oh,
I was kind
mhm.
of, watching the show, and I wasn't even, like, looking at the timestamp or anything, but I was like, "Something's gotta happen." Like, there's gotta be like, someone's gonna walk it. I actually thought it might have been, like, Hayden or a teammate or somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't it's I don't it's funny because I feel like I don't know, I don't always I don't think
Like,
my brain
predict
is always
what's what's
yeah, I mean,
happening.
it's almost really because I'm like, I think I'm always thinking about television and movies in a way that I think like, I feel like the thing that would probably be most relatable for people is to in this community of being like, we wish we could turn off the like edit brain that we
Right.
all see for Survivor, where like someone does a confessional about like being able to vote them out as soon as the immunity challenge ends. You're like, oh, that's just spoiled it for me. But but my brain, I don't think I am like trying to. I can like I think when I stop and think of it, I'm like, oh, that will probably happen in the future. But no, I don't think I was expecting anything to. Well, I feel like there's so much. I do feel like they actually, to give them some credit, I feel like did seed enough tension for me in the way in which I think already at that point, yeah, definitely, they've talked about that he like his contract is up and he's going to
Mhm.
move somewhere. He can't play for Montreal. He'll go somewhere else or start a charity. I think there's already enough tension for the finale of like this is so great, but like we eventually are gonna have to leave the cottage. That's a bit, and that to me is a thing that maybe they could not that they should have done more, but I feel like is a really was a thing that when I was first coming out, especially when I was coming out as trans, there was a big thing that I would talk to my therapist about that I would have these like bubbles of places where I could be me. And it was so hard to like have to leave the bubble. So like if
Mm.
you've come out to somebody like, but then you have to go home and be in front of your parents and not be out or whatever. Like you're leaving the safety bubble, which is almost there's like not that it's worse to not be out, but it was really hard to be in very accepting places and then have to go to a place where you're not. So I was maybe thinking like that's where they were going, maybe. And then like no, it's like there's this extra thing of the parent. And again, I just can't talk about how much I think it was so effective in the way that it's
Yeah.
not immediately like it's okay. We love you. Everything will be fine. Your life is gonna be fine. It is this thing of them sitting, I think, being like completely in shock. Which is, I think, even for parents who like, because I think it's a little bit like when I first came up to my mom, I think there was this thing of like, well, we thought maybe, but also like, you're not the most stereotypical queer person, and I think that's probably what they're feeling with Shay. Was like, we thought probably, but you're also like, it's not like we knew for sure. I just think
Right.
it's really effective storytelling and
Yeah,
writing.
it's interesting because there's so many things, and I think this again correlates to why people who like to just watch or read romance also like this show regardless of whatever the sexuality of the couple is, because while a lot of the romance books I've read don't involve gay couples needing to come out or getting discovered. They do involve secret relationships with people
Right.
getting discovered. So it's a
Right.
very similar feeling, obviously, with a lot more importance and extra context there. But part of me was like, oh, well, this is a romance and there's a secret relationship. So someone's going to find out at some point.
I'm pitching the series that follows the couple who got caught at the Coldplay concert. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to pitch that show around. If anybody's interested, let me know.
I'm
Mhm.
surprised there's not already like a documentary or something.
That's coming on
Like,
Netflix next year, where you can see,
like,
like the poop, like cruise or whatever.
yeah,
There's
Poop
definitely
Cruise.
gonna be one about like, I don't know what you call it, but like kiss cam controversy or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's so
coming.
funny.
That's definitely coming.
That's gotta be there. But yeah, so I think for me, I was just like, no, yeah, I can't turn off the analyzing part of my brain. I wish I could. And unless I'm doing something like
I
watching
think I just
Bullet
have a
Train, where I've
different.
decided I just love it no matter what it is.
I think I have a different, and I think I'm definitely. It's not like my brain is not thinking about something. It's, I guess, or maybe I just did. I was like, I didn't see that it would be his dad coming, but it's very,
I
very.
didn't think it was gonna be his dad, but
If it's
they
somebody.
had no, my
Mhm.
problem is I had clocked in like an episode earlier whenever it was, maybe it was that episode when he had mentioned the cottage. No, it was episode 5. I had heard him say like, "Oh, my parents live down the street." And I just remembered that, and I'm like, he wouldn't have just said that for no reason. Like every line is important. Everything
Yes.
matters, right?
Yes.
You have to store these bits of information. And that's why it's like when I was saying they're not exactly hiding Scott Hunter either, is because like why would you cut to him during some of these moments if he's
Yes.
not going to be a bigger character?
Yes.
So,
Uh, I just want to touch. I feel like I keep going back to like the last episode with the parents, but I also love the scene where he goes to try to apologize to his mom, and his
yes.
mom is like, no, wait, no, hold on, like you don't need to be apologizing. Like I feel bad, and I feel like that is so relatable too. Where I feel like, and actually, I would just give some people advice. I feel like the show, it is such a sweet thing in terms of like that. There is sometimes this thing I think that is not exactly what happens here, but there's sometimes where people feel like it's almost like they put the onus back on the person who is about like in a more harsh way of like, you could have told me. And it's like, but obviously I could have told you, but I didn't really actually know I could have told you. Whereas like, but I think that
Yes.
this moment where
And
she's
that
like,
that
it's so sweet.
and that is one of my pet peeves in romances where people will get mad because you
You
hid
kept,
something from them,
yeah,
when it's like either this wasn't my secret to tell or not purely my secret to tell, or there are outside factors of why I didn't tell you, you know?
right.
Um, but I wonder, I'd have to rewatch Love, Simon to know. I feel like there might have been a similar scene somewhere in that with someone saying like, I feel bad for my like that I must have done something wrong to make you
Yes.
feel like you couldn't tell me, kind
I
of.
don't know. Again, I feel like this idealized version of it, where I feel like that's not the energy that this scene gives. Like, it's actually, I think, a pretty effective way of doing that moment, where it's like it is the energy that I think people who can give, like when you come out to somebody, but it is not like, I don't feel like she puts so much. She's actually saying, I am sorry that I didn't do things to make it, rather than like,
Right.
I'm
Like,
mad
why
at you
didn't
because you
you
didn't do
yeah,
it. Yeah,
exactly,
it's really good.
exactly. There's all sorts of really great moments, in that sequence. You get the vibe a little bit that at least his mom is more shocked that he's dating Ilya than anything else, which
Her
is the
testing the
one.
loyalty of, like, why are you leaving Boston? I think all of this stuff is so, I think the moms, I actually want way more of, Shane's mom, and see business manager, mom manager, and
Yes, I love that. I love her instantly jumping into like, "Okay, hold
these are
on.
the brands that will be
How can we make
okay.
this profitable?" Yeah.
It's so good.
It's kinda funny.
Uh-huh. Like, Rolex
Um,
will be fine,
yeah, it's like,
It's
"Oh,
so
yeah,
funny.
exactly."
Mhm.
Um, I and when there's like the slight language barrier thing when Shane's trying to think of how to describe Ilya, and he's like, "We're lovers." He's like,
Lovers.
"No, that's
No,
gross. That's so gross. Don't
gross.
say that."
Nobody's allowed to say the word lovers in our house
Yeah, that's
again.
so
Yeah.
terrible.
Mhm.
It's such a fun sequence in there. I love when a show, because so many shows are dumbed down now, where they spell everything out, that I love that this show, you're thinking as the viewer, like, wait, did the dad tell his mom when he came back in what he saw? Did he just seem flustered? Did he say, "Oh my
Right.
gosh, Ilya is there"? Like, did he say, what did he say? And I like that they don't have to answer everything. You get to kind of come up with what you think your backstory is. You get to
Yeah.
create that, which is something that I is different from the book, because in this show it's basically years that Scott and Kip are together until they have the moment after Scott wins the cup. In the book, it's like only a matter of months before all of that happens.
Right.
And I actually kind of like it better in the show, where it's like, oh, you have to fill in the gaps yourself. Like, did they break up? Were they doing long distance? Did
Right.
Kip go to grad school? What happened here? What situation are they at? Have they slowly started coming out to people? Like, what's the situation? Similarly with Ilya and Shane in the book, there's a bit more emphasis on them being rivals, which they certainly do in the show, but
Yeah.
it's so hard because you're seeing everything from their perspective, that you're like, they clearly at no point dislike each other, really. And they've got like a rivalry in terms of like, I want to beat your team, you're a little bit of an asshole, but like other than that, they're not like mean to each other.
Yeah, I mean, but I do feel like that does feel to me pretty like, and somebody who's a bigger hockey fan can tell me this does feel a little Ovechkin Crosby, where their like rivalry was never that like they're just not the type of players who are like going to end up like fighting in a hockey game. But whereas like there are people who really do hate each other in hockey who will
Yes.
literally fight each other. It's like the one sport where you're just allowed to fight the other people. Yeah,
I guess there was a way that I thought this could have gone, where it was like, we're having hate sex. But that's
right.
not that, it never felt that way. It always felt like
No,
when they were together in the romantic scenes, that they were like, we're putting aside our right, like, it not even like, I hate that it's you that I like. It's more just like, oh, we have our rivalry and then we have this.
it's kind of why I think Heated Rivalry is like a bad name for the show.
Yeah,
I also
yeah.
because I think like
Also, rivalry is such a hard word to say. I keep stumbling
rivalry.
over it.
Well, I think that like I get what they're going for in the show, where they're sort of like each like positioned as like the like th- I don't know, the face of the like, or the MHL or whatever it's called, rather than like these are two people who literally hate each other.
Mhm.
They're like competitive. I guess rivals is the word. So it's fine. It's fine. Um, I would love to know from people, as somebody who like watches just a little bit of hockey. I do feel like the show is on the better side of we can't be the NHL. So like in terms of being like Montreal and Boston is pretty good. I think it's a little annoying that like Ilya is going to move to Ottawa, but I get it. I feel like in no world is like a Ottawa place where I feel like people go when they're a free agent. I do think it's like mostly pretty good. It's not as bad as I think I've seen many fictional sports leagues be when you like can't get the rights. It's too bad they couldn't just get the rights from the NHL. That's a big miss from the NHL to not give them the
All
rights.
right.
Would
I'm
just
looking.
be
Where's Ottawa?
pretty close to my like it
Oh,
is
they're like right next to each other. What
yes.
is this?
Yes, it is. It
I
does
was picturing them to at least be. Are they in the same province? No,
no,
no, they're
they
not.
are
But barely, barely. They're right on the edge. Look at
they are
this.
right on. Yes, they are. Yes.
Ottawa's in
Ottawa is
Ontario.
basically, it's
Barely.
like partially it is the capital of our country though. So it is, yeah,
Yeah,
it is
it is
Ontario. Yeah.
like chilling on the border.
The best part of going to Ottawa when you were around the time when I've been to Ottawa, and it was when you are 18, is that you could go across the border because could drink in Quebec, the province of Quebec, when you were 18, but not till 19. In
Yeah,
Ontario.
I
So
remember. I
yeah,
remember being in what province is Niagara Falls in?
it's on Ontario.
Wait, so what's the drinking age in Ontario?
19.
Oh, I must have been there when I was like 18 then. It was whatever. I've always I don't know. I was in Vegas when I was 17 too, so.
Ontario is a big province when you think that Ottawa and Niagara Falls are in the same province. Those are drastically, they are very far apart from each other. But
Ottawa and Niagara Falls?
yeah,
They look so close on the map to me.
uh,
They would both still be in New York if they were in if they were in the States.
But that is a 5-hour drive because of the lake. So
Yes,
yeah.
I do see the lake problem. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. This is what happens whenever I talk to any Canadian people on shows. I did once ask Kirsten if pants work the same way in Canada. I don't remember what the context.
No, it works way differently up here.
You go left leg first.
That's right. Okay. Well, I mean, I think if we're in the how far away is Ottawa?
Yes,
I feel like we're in the end of. No, I feel like we're at the end of the. Is there anything else about Heated Rivalry that we should talk about, or that any listeners gonna be really mad if we like didn't talk about a specific part of the show?
I don't know. I mean, I would just love to hear from different people why they like it, or if for whatever reason they didn't. I'd also be curious to know for that, because I'm not saying it's for everyone, but I do feel like it had so much more depth than I thought it would, and like I kind of say like I wouldn't even say that romance is my favorite genre. It's rarely what I watch in TV, especially, and so watching a show that was basically completely romance was different for me, but I just was really blown away with how much heart it had, and for how successful it's been, given I think the fact that probably everybody involved did not think it was going to be that successful, which is always very exciting to see.
I definitely think it had potential. I think it had like Letterkenny Shoresy potential in terms of like being, but even then, I think that probably Crave assumed there was a little bit of a risk in just how LGBTQ focuses. I mean, this is the other thing that I think I meant to say this earlier. We didn't, is I do think in terms of the show having tension from sort of like society being homophobic is sort of like the big enemy, like NHL like sports culture being homo. That's like the big enemy of the show, which I actually do think it isn't not unimportant that the show has become popular, as there has been a tremendous backlash to like DEI in America over that. So there's a thing at my work recently where they've like recommitted to DI, and I was wondering whether or not at our work there would be a risk to that, because if we work with any American companies, had the idea that American companies, apologize, that's my just a blood sugar alarm going off, that American companies would be like, oh, because you're committed to DI, we actually are not able to like partner with you, because like the backlash that we will get from like working in America will be that like we will like lose funding. I was like I'm really glad that we're doing this, but this is the risk of doing that. And they're like, yeah, it's okay, we'll be committed to it. And I feel like having that energy in this moment, I think, is the other thing that I think is really like working for the show, of like it's super, queer show that is existing. And I think partnering that with like that's what we're doing up in Canada, as there is this moment happening again in America, I think is another reason why the show has sort of like caught lightning in a bottle. So yes,
and it's a great like reminder that kind of there are still areas where whether it be because of the sport you're in or the country you're from or whatever the circumstances, there are still areas where being gay would be a massive factor in your life and career, and that I know people have said who are involved with the show since then, like since it's been made, if this can make one young hockey player or fan feel more comfortable about themselves or coming out or whatever it is, then that's great. And I think also just popularity and recognition of the show in general, I think, is only going to be a positive in those areas, I would hope.
Agreed. Yes.
I think it's, at least I can't imagine someone watching the show and then thinking like, oh no, we should not be telling this story.
I mean, I think there are people who are like,
I disagree with them.
I agree. But I think that there's a reason why it's like it again, like to the idea that like I think people maybe at Crave are like, yeah, it could have like Letterkenny, Shoresy upside, and it's I think like it's the most watched Crave show ever, and considering it's only 6 episodes and only just been out in the last like on its first season, I think that says quite a bit. I think that there's like a reason why it is resonating so much in this particular climate,
And it does have the feeling of, like, especially when it comes to Canadian shows, like, I know of Letterkenny, Schitt's Creek became very popular eventually, but, like, a lot of those shows I probably heard about after they had 2 or 3 seasons out.
That's
Like,
what I'm saying.
it
Yeah.
wasn't something that I heard about right away when it came out.
Yes. Oh, here's literally as we're about to wrap up, we
Yes.
got a question in the Facebook group, which is amazing. Which is
Yay.
Michael Horn asked, "Do you think the massive surprise overnight success of the show is setting us up to have unrealistic expectations and inevitably be disappointed by season 2?"
I would say
Question.
never. I cannot think of almost any season 2 ever that has been as good as a season 1. I don't know if I would say that. There's probably some. No, yeah, I mean, like, The Office season 1 was definitely not its best. But, I think it really depends what they do with it. I think there's going to be a lot of fans who all they wanna see is every single moment from Shane and Ilya's life and every single thing told out beat by beat. I think it is more likely than not that the whole season is not just about them. Whether that means that we get other people brought in, other characters from different books in the series, or whether or not they're side characters. I'm not sure what direction they're gonna go with it is. I think it might in some ways benefit the show to not be like an endless, we'll just keep making seasons until the steam runs out. Like, sometimes it's good to pick a stopping point. So I'm curious about that.
I agree with that. I think what I do think I think there's just sort of like an interesting not dilemma that the show has, but I think that there is because from my understanding there's basically I'm just trying to count how many other stories so there's been 7 novels and 3 of them are Shane and Ilya
Yes.
stories. And so the other 4 are not Shane and Ilya stories, but I have to assume there could be more done with Game Changer between the Scott and Kip story. In terms of like what that first book is like. But then you also have, you have this other, I think it's funny to think of like, could there be this many like gay hockey player like, can there be sort of like this endless amount of them to tell other stories about? I think you also could like, man, I don't think this is what the show would be, but like, could you like adapt it to not be always hockey? I think like what other sport could you have like, like an NBA star or something? But I also agree with you that like, I don't think this show needs to be like a 10 season show. But the fact that there are and the other thing I thought your point about like referencing The Office is interesting because I think like the first season of The Office and the first season of Parks and Rec are like notoriously like not the best versions of those shows. But the difference between this and those is that those shows didn't really know what they wanted to be. Whereas I think this show knows exactly what it is. And so as long as it continues to try to be that, I think it's okay. And the fact that they have at least 2 other books that they can adapt from, and I don't think they need to be like necessarily not without reading them. I don't think they need to be 100% faithful. As long as they're faithful to the themes of the books, they're okay. So yeah, we'll see.
Also, just glancing, I kind of hate that I did this, but glancing at the overview of each of the books in the series, I will say I'll correct what I said earlier. It
Yeah,
does
the
appear that season 1 is based off of book just
book
like book
2.
2
Yeah,
and not the other 2 in this series. The 2 others, The Long Game and Unrivaled, that are about Shane and Ilya, the content of those has not been shown on here yet.
right.
I will say pretty much all of Game Changer is in episode 3. That's pretty much the whole thing.
Oh, really?
I mean, there's certainly they could do flashbacks and show more in-depth moments for certain things, but for the most part, a lot of that plot's there. I think there's still more you could tell from the story, especially because there's a 3-year time jump now that needs to be accounted for. But
Yeah,
in terms of what was in the book, it's pretty much that.
yeah, and I think there's another thing, and I think that I just want to get the name of the person who's involved in Heartstopper. The writer of that is named Alice Oseman. She's heavily involved in that show, and I think like there's a thing where like I bet that like Jacob Turney did not just like go and like write this show without talking with Rachel Reed at least a little bit about like the changes he might be making. Like I just have to imagine that that happened. And so you can imagine the world where like even if like if the story of Scott and Kip as it's been written is all been in the show, there is a world where like Rachel Reed could be like, oh yeah, here's what I imagine are the things that could happen between
Exactly.
Scott and Kip that you can dive into in a season 2. So I think that there's
Especially
lots to dive into. Yeah.
Yes, especially because book 4 in the series, Common Goal, I will say, without spoiling anything else, involves 2 of the side characters from Game Changer.
Okay.
Um,
Right.
So
There you go.
one of those side characters, but not both, was in the show in episode 3 as well. So there's many ways you could continue to tell stories and have plot in here. I think the real question is season 2 going to be more about Shane and Ilya because or is it going to explore more other people? We'll see. There's definitely
Here's what I would say. I think that there are people who might have unrealistic expectations, even from the show, where they're like, they have the opposite reaction to you, where they're like, oh, I don't even watch episode 3 because it's not Shane and Ilya, which, like, whatever. Those people are like, if you're not even watching the full thing, you don't even, I think, get to have like a comment on the show.
Do you really like the thing if you only like 5/6 of it? I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. And the fact that it becomes important later and ties into the show. So, like, whatever. I think that the show probably will have a problem of like an expectation of wanting to follow mostly Shane and people being fans mostly of the show because of Shane and Ilya. And anytime we're not there, maybe being like annoyed or upset that the show isn't being what it is. But I think from what I've seen so far, I think the show is very capable at being able to be like, even when there's not moments of it just being Shane and Ilya, being able to tell a very compelling story and tie it into Shane and Ilya's story.
There's another factor, which is, Grace, I don't know if you were tapped into the Bridgerton drama several years ago, but there's also the Regé-Jean Page factor, which is either one of Connor or Hudson could say, I only want a bit part in this, and I'm kind of done with this, and I'm doing other things, and I may or may not be in line for James Bond or whatever it was that he said he thought of, so like that kind of thing. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe, yeah. I mean, that would be a big blow to not have, I think, either Connor's story or
I'm sure they'll be in it, but I think
but
it's mostly just gonna be whether or not are they only adapting their storylines or not.
Well, and I mean, there also is the thing of like that. It's not wild to think that Crave actually doesn't have like endless amounts of. We're actually like this is actually kind of what can happen to Canadian shows. Schitt's Creek was not a Crave show. It was not a Bell Media show. This is Bell Media does have a lot of money, and it'd be very silly to think that this is the reason why like this show could like fall apart. But like if Connor Story is going to host SNL and like becoming a big star, whatever they're going to get out of being in Heated Rivalry, then like that is another reason why the show could run into issues in terms of like how long it could go on for. Yeah.
Just because HBO is the one distributing it here in America, a lot of people did not even know this was a Canadian show.
Correct.
Didn't know that it wasn't just a HBO made show. So
there's also Crave original, as people need to know. Mm-hmm.
Yes, although there are lots and lots of American shows just made in Canada.
That's true. That's why people could be
even despite all of the many things at the beginning of the episode saying Crave original.
Yes.
So, but I'm excited to see what would come next. So again, fans, I love that you love the thing. Calm down a little, but have some healthy boundaries.
Plus short stories. That's 7 full novels plus short stories that people.
And we didn't even talk about the fact that they could also do what a lot of shows do, which is base the first season on a thing and then say we don't want the people who've read the book to feel like they know everything. Mm-hmm. And so we want to change some things. We want to go in a different direction. So there's also that possibility.
I also think about this too sometimes. Unfortunately, I do believe the thing that I used to reference about this is a thing where the author is now completely canceled. But I often think about the way in which if you wrote something and then you adapted it, would you actually decide to change the thing? Because you're like, oh, I wrote it that way and I thought it should be that way, but then actually I don't like it. And because it's in a different medium, it actually should be different. So, we shall see. But that's a long way off.
Then again, your thing was successful. So if you're like, Game of Thrones, maybe just adapt your successful thing and don't try to go in your own direction.
They were like, we actually want to go do Star Wars. So that's, I could speak about this book adaptations endlessly.
I think people in our generation are just going to always be scarred with the end of Game of Thrones.
Very true. Very true. Okay, well, this was so fun to talk about Heated Rivalry.
Great. I had a great time.
I feel like it actually was, in the way that we weren't like maybe the most timely in terms of when it came out. We have all of this stuff to be able to like.
But I think there are people who are still finding out about it every day right now. So I don't think it's completely run out of steam yet by any means.
Definitely not. It's so steamy. What else do you have going on? I know you're talking about what is the show?
Extracted season 2. Yep, over on We Know Scripted TV.
I have to say,
Sorry, We Know Reality TV. My bad. That's what this
that is the name of a show that sounds like it could be a
Yeah.
fictional show that exists in the Stephen Fishbach Escape.
Yes, Escape by Stephen Fishbach, which finally got delivered to my house yesterday after all the snow has prevented it from getting here. Yes, I have it. Yeah, Extracted is great. It's hilarious. If you are a fan of Survivor, Sandra Diaz-Twine is on it this season, as well as Nina, as well as Annalise from Big Brother.
Oh, I didn't even know all these people were
Annalise from Big Brother fan. That's pretty much it, I think, in terms of reality stars that we at least know of right now who are on the show.
This is an American show filmed in Canada.
Yes, filmed in Canada. There's been some bear sightings. It's very exciting. Actually, like basically every show that I've ever podcasted about, not really, but a lot of them. Riverdale, filmed in Canada.
Yes.
Smallville, filmed in Canada.
I was gonna make a joke about there's probably a bear sighting in Heated Rivalry, but I think they're probably more like, at the very least, otters.
I don't think it happened in Heated Rivalry because that wasn't filmed in Vancouver, was it? Where was that filmed? I'm not sure.
I just mean like the gay terminology of bears.
Oh, sorry, that went straight over my head for a second there.
That's
my
okay.
bad.
That's great.
But sorry, I was thinking about all the shows that take place in Canada because the bad thing is seeing the same backgrounds in all of these different shows from different networks, which is also funny. They'll be like using the same building, but that's life.
Yes.
Suits, that was filmed in Canada, right?
Yes, there's a show coming out that was filmed in my old office. We since moved, but one of the last days I was there to pick up all my stuff, they were filming the Michael Chernus show that's about John Wayne Gacy was filmed.
That's cool.
I know, pretty So yeah.
Wow. I
think
the only thing
that's filmed in Toronto.
Been filmed in my city that I'm in right now is one episode of The Bachelor. One time they came here, which is weird.
I think I even saw something on Facebook today in my little group chat that said something I watch is being filmed like a little bit over from where I live. But
have you ever been in a show or anything?
Like I have never. No, I've never been. The closest I feel like I've been to like kind of being on set was, and I'm so annoyed with myself, but there was a night that I came home and I had a flight the next day and I saw that there was this, like, they were clearly filming something at a historical house across the street from me. And I was like, I should go see what it is. But like, yeah, I'm so tired. I got an early flight. I'm not going to go. And then it turned out it was What We Do in the Shadows. And I was so mad that I didn't.
Man, that would have been cool.
A lot of scenes in What We Do in the Shadows, like I will be like, oh, that's that salon near me, or like that's the Canadian Tire near me. So it's like, cool. Yeah, it's very fun. Yeah. Have you been in anything? What have you been?
I was an extra in Evan Almighty back a long time ago.
Evan Almighty. Is Evan Almighty the Ed Helm? That's the Steve Carell.
It's Steve Carell's sort of sequel to it's a sequel to Bruce Almighty, but it's much more family friendly than Bruce Almighty was. Okay. It's interesting, but it was that was an experience.
The show that I was filming is Adults, which is the show that Chantal Francis was in, which is the comedy, the Nick Kroll executive produced comedy that came out last year. That is very good. Cool. People haven't seen it. Yeah.
Look at this. So many connections. I'm still just so jealous that you got to talk to Vic Michaelis. So whatever.
They were lovely. Yeah.
So cool. But yeah, that and what was the other thing you asked me? I thought Eternity was fine.
I actually asked you what other stuff you've been on. Yeah, Eternity. You thought I loved Eternity. I was so smitten by Eternity, but
yeah. The other thing is what's coming out soon? Love is Blind is coming back. So
yes,
myself and Jason and Asia we'll talking about the next season. I can't even keep track. I don't know what I think it's season 10 or 11. I'm not sure. It's one of those. It's coming out.
10, I think it looks like. Love is Blind would be very good for do you know that the show Are You the One, when they did like like sort of everybody was pansexual, so anybody could have been your man. I think Love is Blind could be well suited to an LGBTQ version.
They haven't done that. They did have a different show made by the same people called The Ultimatum, which
the Queer Ultimatum,
Queer Ultimatum version, which I stand by the fact that the Queer Ultimatum is so much better than the straight Ultimatum, and yet they canceled that one. So
LGBTQ people can be very messy. So I feel like a Love is Blind, like a queer Love is Blind would be, I think, incredibly good.
It would be so good. It would be so good. Oh well, I guess the only flaw in that is that you have to like sequester everybody separately. Normally they like keep all the men together and the women together, but they would have to like separate
I
everyone so
see.
that
They'd
because
have to
you
pick
could
people and then
date
oh, yeah,
anyone,
okay.
you know?
That's probably why they haven't done it.
Probably why they haven't done it. See, it's just too logistically
It's too
too hard.
logistically complicated.
You gotta get everybody a separate hotel room.
Yes. Okay. Well, Mary, thanks so much for coming on. In terms of what
Thanks
I
for
have,
having me.
Tastemakers Taran will be back next week. I also have This Century in Cinema, counting down the New York Times top 100 films of the 21st century. This week, the plan is to have to do Everything Everywhere All at Once with the wonderful Phil T.
Nice.
That is the plan for this week, or a little bit delayed. And then I'm also recapping A Night of the Seven Kingdoms each week with DM Philly over on his podcast Screen and Page. So I'm writing for Parade and Pop Heist and doing all sorts of stuff online. New Facebook group, check it out. And I'm on social media at Hi From Grace. I'll be back next week with another episode of the Tastemakers. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Until next time, bye-bye.